people believe that 5G was developed in Israel, not that that's necessarily of critical importance, but that the Israeli government will not roll it out in Israel. Rather, Israel will develop a fiber optic version controlled entirely by the government and Israeli firms, with no foreign competition allowed in. Firstly, do you understand or believe this is correct? And secondly, will the fiber optic approach mean the population will be protected from the dangers associated with 5G?
Yes, I really don't know whether Israel are rolling out 5G. I do know, because it is published in the international papers in open court, that Israel are taking strenuous measures to protect nurseries, nursing homes, schools, libraries, kindergartens, children. That they are taking strenuous measures to protect their population. I also know, because I supplied evidence for this, and I'm not the only one, I'm not the cleverest person on the planet here. I do know that the Californian Fire Brigade, I think it's Law 649, they have been exempt exposure to 5G, the Californian Fire Brigade, because a survey was done with all emergency service personnel, and I wrote 2 safety reports for emergency service personnel condemning the exposure of microwaves, because they use them a lot, like the military. They found that after a 20-year study that every single firefighter within the study in California, every single one had a form of neurological damage or physiological damage, and it was published. And when 5G came out, they were exempt the added stress of 5G, so that it wouldn't harm them anymore. But yeah. Yeah, but it's known. It's known that emergency service personnel, and as I say, I've written 2 safety reports. They're on that memory stick I'm giving you. The military just have to use it and suffer. They're not told. It actually says in this paper, when I said protect industrial output, and it also said to prevent, I think, the military knowing about it as well. But the military are very big users. They are kept in the dark, which is why you get a lot of psychological damage from the military, because they are extensive users. But I do know 5G is, the fire brigades have been exempted, and there are other countries that are strenuously fighting against 5G now. Yeah, the fiber optic, none of this destruction is really necessary, because all you need to do is run fiber optic cable from source to the person that wants to use it. You can still have all your smartphones, all your cell phones. You can have everything you want, Wi-Fi and everything. You just send it through fiber optic cable. But the 2 reasons I can only think of why they won't do that. One, it probably cuts into the $17 trillion profit margin, or you deliberately want a country to be destroyed for whatever political or international reason. But you do not need microwaves in the air. You can have fiber optic cable from user to source, and you can have microwaves in the air safely, because you can use a safe non-pulsed frequency, and if you can still have cell phones, for what they were originally designed for, which is if you have a tractor that tips over and lands on top of somebody, you can ring the emergency services. If you break down in your car on a country lane and it is freezing, you can ring the emergency services. If you use cell phones for life and death emergencies, it is a brilliant invention. It will do its job. There will be next to no risk to any plant life. You don't need all of the microwaves. You would need a trillionth of the microwaves in the air now, not even that. It would be as safe as crossing a road. You know, there wouldn't be any. So you can have everything you want, and you can have it safely. Now, the reason why it isn't, you have to ask the people who make the decisions.
When one is travelling these days, and one doesn't have to be even travelling, one could be walking around in a city or anywhere, you find people nervously operating their cell phone or smartphones or whatever they happen to have, tablets, etc., as though if they ever lost this piece of equipment, they'd been in a state of total panic. How do you see this? In other words, what I'm suggesting is it's already become a form of epidemic, a quite literal form of epidemic, that total and utter reliance on this piece of equipment.
Very good question. There are two answers here. The first is it has been measured on public transport that you can be as much as 3,000 times above any safety limit. 3,000 times. Now, if you think about the driver, or a conductor, or a pregnant lady, or a child, and some of these journeys can be quite long, that is not a good thing. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? Yeah, it is known, and it has been known since the Cold War because I was involved in it. Although, as time goes on, more and more intricate knowledge actually comes out. We knew what would happen, we didn't know why. But now I'm reading papers on the brain and giving interviews, and now we know why. And this will surprise you that the phenomenon that I'm actually talking about was actually first published and written about in 64 BC. That is not new. In 64 BC, a Greek living in Egypt by the name of Ptolemy, spelled with a P, he, very famous scientist, and his work is still used today. He found that when you would heat up metals or various substances, the radiation that came off, the same as the radiation from the sun, if you made a solid wheel, like a cartwheel, only solid, and you drilled holes, and he put this in front of your eyes, when he spun the wheel at different speeds, he could induce you to be drunk or sleepy or angry or behave silly. And it was known then that the photoelectric effect of the radiation going in the eyes to the brain would cause different sensations. In fact, a gentleman scientist from, I think, Yale University that then went back to Spain, Jose Delgado, he'd worked on this and developed these pulses in the brain, and he actually said that any moods or behavior traits could be induced. And he could make women become sexually romantic. you can, one of the pulse frequencies will cause sexual aggression. It will cause you to commit suicide. And you get, even if you watch television, you will have a warning that says, if you suffer from photosensitive epilepsy, don't watch this, because there is a feedback loop in the brain that will trigger one form of epilepsy from this. And you can induce chemicals in the brain, and I won't run through all the names of them, but you can induce chemicals in the brain by the pulse frequencies coming in. Oh yes, yes, yes. Yep. The chemicals which can be induced in the brain produce the same effects. They are not the same chemicals. They produce the same effect as morphine, marijuana, to make you hungry. And when I say hungry, I don't mean you need a sandwich. I mean you will rob a bank to get food. Sexual aggression, nightmares, hallucinations, suicidal tendencies. The phones can do this. Now, people, you will see, they will become addicted to phones. You're getting this, the similar effect of morphine and marijuana, and this is now measured. You can see it on a scan in the brain. They'll pick up the phones and you get this pleasure sensation in your brain, like smoking. And they'll put their phone down, and then unconsciously they will think, hang on, I need to make a phone call. Like I need a cigarette, or I need a drink. And you start using, and they are addictive. So one of the problems we now have is that the cell phone, smartphone, has been hijacked by children, and they are very susceptible to this addiction. And psychiatrists have written that when you try and limit a child's cell phone use or take one off, one psychiatrist said that the child said to the parents, and published this in Scientific American Mind, the child said to the parents, and meant it a girl, teenage girl, if you so much as touch my cell phone, I will kill you both in your sleep. Another girl punched her mother in the face that tried to take the cell phone. And this is where children are. They are really addicted. So it's like giving children cigarettes and alcohol and marijuana and saying, enjoy yourself for as many years to get you hooked. Now we're going to take them away. You won't do it. And this is one of the problems, is because adults and children are chemically, in terms of brain chemistry, they are addicted. And this was known in 64 BC. It is used by the weapons industry to cause people to commit suicide or get cancer or do whatever. And it is used to try and have brain control. So, and it's well known.
Absolutely extraordinarily important information, Barry. I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that. 5G is said to operate at pulse frequencies used by US security for intense crowd control. And that's going on a lot nowadays, as you've noticed, to try and keep people from ever making serious progress, any type of rebellion, you might say. Would you like to comment on that?
Oh yes, the 5G, it's just above the top frequency of 5G is around 78 gigahertz. What's known as the growler, that comes in at around 90 gigahertz, which electronically and brain speaking is really no difference. The growler, I have known it to be tested on special service, military special service people, and it sort of brought them to their knees in seconds. It is for crowd control, which will cause severe neurological and physiological damage, which could be permanent, that could induce cancer, could induce any brain abnormality. And it is a weapon, and this is why I'm saying, well, if you've got a weapon here, giving a lower frequency doesn't mean that this is safe. It means it can be used as the same, only if it is a lower power. It will take longer. That's all. You can't have it both ways. But yes, it is used. It is known as the growler. It is made for firing or beaming from aircrafts. It can be used from vehicles. And it is the latest for crowd control.
Now, in the rollout planned for 5G in the next 2 years, 1919, 1920, under, I believe, a title of something like Starlink, the gentleman called Elon Musk, who is one of the developers of the electric car, has brought a consortium of very big businesses together to launch an incredible number of satellites. Within 2 years, as I understand it, 20,000 satellites are supposed to be launched, which are going to cover the entire planet. As they say, every square inch of the Earth will be able to be under the effect, under the administration of these satellites, and they'll be able to absorb all the information that's going on anywhere, target any place on Earth. Aside from the fact of the pollution caused by trying to launch all these satellites, the kerosene, etc., what is it about the satellite factor that plays into the 5G, what we're going to see on lampposts, these boxes which send the signal to and fro to people's smartphones, the Internet of Everything, as it's now called? What role does the satellite play in connection with that? This is something, I think, quite technical but important for people to understand.
There are many things. First of all, it isn't 20,000. It may be 20,000 satellites, but the actual number of transmitters going up is well over 250,000. It is high-level satellites, low-level satellites, drones, which will be solar-powered and just go round and round and round forever, and balloons, which will be solar-powered. The number, and I talk to military people around the world, the number is well over 250,000. For countries which allow it above them, and it's not going to be all of the countries, the people running the satellites will be able to, not that they will, but they will be able to control populations. They will be able to monitor every single piece of data that is being transferred around the country, and there will not be a single government or person's secret that can be kept secret. They can target any organization, any city, any type of block they want to. They can target any sports activity, any government activity. You can control thinking processes, and the information can be sold to people who want to buy it. There are lots of people who want to buy secrets. There are lots of advertising companies who want to buy things. The information can be sold. So it could be used, whatever your imagination can think up, there will be a way to use it. And once it's in the air, you can't, if 5G is on a lamppost, you can climb up and turn it off. If it's on a big tower, you can knock the tower down, as some countries are actually doing. You can take them down. But if it's on a satellite, how are you going to find out where it is? How are you going to track the drone or the balloon? How are you going to see it? And how are you going to cut out it's like the Sky television. How are you actually going to cover that much ground if you wanted to block the waves? You know, you couldn't. Once it's up and it's up, it stays up, and then whoever is controlling it will have absolute full control over that country.
Well, just to mention three names: the Boeing Corporation, Google, and Richard Branson's airline, Virgin Airlines, are just three of about 20 consortiums that are pumping vast amounts of money into this.
Yeah. One thing is that the people doing this may be innocent. For instance, you can buy a cell phone and the company selling it to you may be legitimate. What they don't know is that up to 30 countries make the components for a cell phone, and one of the countries could put in a trigger that says, we will now listen to everything you're saying and nobody else will be able to pick it up. Another could put in other devices that will talk to other cell phones. So you could have a trigger in the device. Richard Branson could be told, we're doing this, it will help humanity, we're doing this. But the people making it will say, okay, but we're also going to put in this and this and this and this, and we can activate it from another satellite. You won't even know it's there. You won't even know it's activated. And people with cell phones now probably don't know that even if it is turned off, it can be activated. If it's got a camera, they can listen to and watch. And this was designed for business meetings, for bankers to listen in, which is why when bankers have meetings now, all the cell phones are locked in a safe. But it was designed so when financiers and businessmen have a meeting, they could not only see who was speaking, same as MPs in defence meetings, but even if the cell phone is turned off, you can listen and you can pick up everybody else's phone call, and there are devices that will allow your cell phone to be used as a transmitter without you even knowing. So somebody can send a message, it will go into your battery, get a boost, go on to another one. Just the fact that your cell phone is off doesn't mean it's off. These can be put in and they can be used. And again, the criminal world, and I've met lots of organised crime, they can not only use it, but it has already started and been published that this is very, very good for blackmail. Very good for blackmail. And people are being told, and we've had our health service hacked, where the hackers said, we will publish everybody's medical reports on the internet, and you're talking about people with AIDS or psychological, you know, unless you pay us a certain amount of money. We've had our health service hacked. And recently there was a website where people could send in their sexual preferences. They were blackmailed. Other websites, we've had a bank hacked just this last week, where they've said, we will give everybody's bank details unless. So, you know, once you've got access to this, and the worst thing are these smart meters, because once you get the smart meters, you have a mesh of information going all over the place from everybody, and if you hack into a smart meter, you've got everything. You can even tell when anybody is going to the toilet in any house, and you can even listen to that. So it is used, it can be used for weapons, it can be used for blackmail, it can be used for crime, it can be used for other countries' defence, and once this is up and running, you are really at the mercy of the people who have got the secret bits. But it's the people putting it up may be absolutely innocent and don't even know what they're doing, but once it's up, they've lost control.
I wonder if you can tell us at least some of the names of the countries which don't want 5G. I mean, this is an extremely interesting point, because after all, if the world is going to be, so to speak, divided between those that do and those that don't, the ones that don't already have extremely good evidence for why they don't, and can be extremely influential on the ones which are in between, you might say.
Right. I do know, you're into a sticky point here. I do know that the last 17, I don't know, when I go to a country, I often meet a leader of another country. The last 17 leaders that I have spoken to, I have had feedback, because they say, how can we stop this, or what can we do with this? The last 17 countries are actively now doing something, and most of their work, you have to appreciate that not even kings can take on the industry. In fact, kings are usually shareholders. Royal families, if somebody comes to your country and says this is harmless, they're radio waves, we will also get you $100 billion, and they'll sign here. What the countries don't realise, and this is a brilliant question. What the countries don't realise is when you sign here, you sign to say that if you decide to take the system out, you will pay the company all the revenue it would get had the system been there. And you are really locked in this legal loop. They say, well, look, we have signed to say, yes, we can have it taken out, but we must carry on giving the company all of the money they would have earned had it been left in. But that's not necessarily the case. And I say no. We're back to secret documents. Because if you were lied to when it went in, now you have legal grounds for stopping it because it was lied. You were lied to. Because government documents actually predicted this, and they actually say that they will get this, and sensitive people will suffer from this, and all sorts of things will happen. It's listed and documented. The Warsaw document, the United States Defense Intelligence documents, other documents. So if you were lied to, so the last 17 countries I've been to, or not countries, the leaders, they go to their legal people. Yes, they have been lied to, the same as Poland will have been lied to. It's the only way. If they come to you and say, we're going to destroy your country and only 1 in 8 of your children is going to be born healthy, we're going to ruin your plants, you won't have any cattle left, and your food production will be zero, you're not going to sign. So you are lied to. It's as simple as that. Now, they are looking at the legal way, and they are doing it in steps. They are saying, we are taking this out of here because you didn't tell us this, and they're doing. You can't just throw everything out. But what you can do with the industry is you can start with kindergartens, nurseries, because the safety levels only apply to adults. So there is your, and they wouldn't have told you that. So if the safety level only applies to adults, straight away you've got all your children, so you can take them out of schools, kindergartens, nurseries, hospitals. They also mention sick people, so you protect all sick people. Old people, you can protect old people. Then you, and what the industry don't do, they are supposed to survey the area for sensitive people and children, and it actually says special consideration must be made. So once you start doing that, now you can legally start getting it. And then you can start leaning on the industry and saying, look, lose some of your $17 trillion and fix fiber optic cable, or we will go to the World Court. And we will, and there is a list, and I have a list of 20 people, and I know one that is already been named for who should, a solicitor has already named one person, a ringleader, to be taken to the World Court for crimes against humanity. And the damage, and I have said this when I'm talking to countries, you will suffer more, no shadow of a doubt. You will suffer more than your plague in the 1340s and 50s and your plague in the 1600s. This will be worse than both plagues. But you can go to the World Court, and I have known there is a professor who I know because I've sent the information. A professor went to the World Court with 5 other professors to stop this on the grounds of genocide. It is genocide. Yep, it is absolute genocide. And steps are being made to go to the World Court and name individuals. At the moment, with 42% it's being rolled out, but can I name the 17 countries? No, because it is a private conversation and they are in legal processes, and if I named it, the industry will be monitoring every word of this, and they will say, right, target this country, get your lawyers over there, and they have really good lawyers. And I went to one court case, and the first Land Rover was full of men with white wigs, wore white wigs, and the second Land Rover was people who carried their papers for them. I mean, they turn up in force with their legal experts. So, yes, I do know the last 17 countries, yes, they are taking action, and it can be taken, and you can win, but you need a team of very good lawyers, and you need the documents I have.
Well, we're getting close, I think, to the end of this session. I did have a question which it might have personally answered already, but I would like to go back to it. Actually based on a testimony you gave to United States District Court of Oregon some time back, and I'm literally copied this down because I thought it was so interesting. Yeah, I think it might. No, it's not. I'm going to read what you said. To my knowledge, this is in front of the district court in Oregon. You said, to my knowledge, microwave or radio wave sickness was first reported in August 1932 with the symptoms of severe tiredness, fatigue, fitful sleep, headaches, intolerability, and high susceptibility to infection in 1932. And now listen to this, everybody, because this is exactly what hundreds of people are reporting to us in Poland, in England, of exactly these symptoms. By 1971, the US Medical Research Institute, the NMRI, excuse me, referenced 2,300 research articles listing an excess of 120 impairments and illnesses attributed to the radio frequency and microwave radiation. So already back in 1971, you had enormous amount of evidence of the problem. So under the Freedom of Information Act, you say, extracts from the published US Defense Intelligence Agency documents confirmed NMRI research and stated, quote, if the more advanced nations of the West are strict in enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions. I'm going to read that again. If the more advanced nations of the West are strict in enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions.
Absolutely correct. And after this, what happened was the scientific advisors, they needed a level of microwaves that could not be taken to court, that where you could not complain about being ill. And what they did, they went back to a gentleman scientist, I think his name was Sean Swan, something like that. And he set a level based in 1953 on a particular type of radiation, and the outcome of this, which is still in force today in Poland, and 42% of the planet who are in fact dying from microwaves, they said, and this is one rule, and this is the only safety rule, in 42% of the planet, most of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or they've changed now, but most of Europe, Australia, Canada, what they said was, and this is the only safety rule, and it takes some believing, if you do not feel too warm in 6 minutes, it is deemed safe for everybody for a lifetime's exposure of any frequency, any power. So in other words, if you do not feel too warm in 6 minutes, it is deemed safe. Now think about that. You've got a schoolroom full of Wi-Fi, and if the children do not say, this Wi-Fi is making me feel too warm, in 6 minutes it is safe for them to use from a nursery right the way through up university to the day they finish and sit in front of it. But the clever bit is that microwaves, which is how microwave ovens work, of course, microwaves cook from the inside out. Your brains do not have heat sensors inside. They're on the outside. Your body, the heat sensors are on the outside. Microwaves go inside. So what they have said is, if you do not feel too warm in 6 minutes with the sensors you do not have, it is deemed safe for life. In other words, what they have done is said, we have set a safety level that you will never ever challenge in court. And when you sign to say, I'll have this in my country, that is the safety level you are agreeing to. And they knew before that that was not safe, and it doesn't apply to children and animals and things, and this is your loophole, but this is the safety level, and that is it.
You said further, in order to protect industrial profit and military function, and to avoid litigation from military employees, it was suggested that governments in the West choose a safety level compatible to the military industrial output. The governments that adopted the thermal level denied, and still to this day deny, any adverse effect from subthermal levels. I just added to that. So this has been a weapon of mass destruction from the start. Could you possibly explain the difference between thermal and subthermal? Also how this relates to smartphones and other cell phone technologies, but you've covered the second part, I think.
Yeah, you have ionizing and non-ionizing, really. Ionizing gamma rays, X-rays, that end of the spectrum. Non-ionizing are, you're looking at your straightforward microwaves. Non-thermal is when you do not heat up, I need to get, I think it's heating up 1 kilogram of body mass within 6 minutes by 1 degree. It's based on that. Yep. Yep.
When people put a mobile phone to their ears, they talk about feeling warm. Now, is that connected with this issue? Misunderstood, I think, that. People thought that was the problem. They didn't realize it was a whole other level.
No, we're talking about whole body radiation, but in fact different areas of the body have different thermal levels. When you put the phone to your ear and your ear feels warm, in fact, to show how dangerous this thermal or below thermal level is, all of the cell phones, all of the transmitters, the military, everybody, it is all given the below thermal level. So none of it should cause a kilogram of your body mass to heat up in 6 minutes by 1 degree, basically. It is all below thermal. Everything you use is below thermal. What they have not told you is that when you put the cell phone to your ear, and in fact, if you look at the safety guide that comes with cell phones, it says, do not hold it next to the skin. When you hold it and you feel warm, in fact, they're wrong, because it is known and has been known that when you warm your skin by 0.6 of 1 degree, which is basically a half of 1 degree, when your cells heat up by 0.6 of 1 degree, what are known as the heat shock proteins come into access. In the cell realizes it is in danger and starts a mechanism like a scaffold around the cell to protect it. But it can also protect then cancer cells. And so what you can do once it's 0.6 is you can start protecting cancer cells from the rest of the body to destroy. And you also disrupt the cellular process. People don't realize that the heat shock proteins are actually chaperones within the cell, and there are millions of little chemical reactions that take place, and they have quite a lot to play. So the moment you start warming it, you're doing damage anyway.
I think we would now like to spend maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes considering a positive outcome, how people can get together to rid the planet of this horror story, this genocide process, and how we can work together to ensure that there are plenty of other problems on the planet. I mean, this is such an extreme one that Jadwiga and I, who worked on GMO at that time, we thought this was probably the most significant problem for the food chain. But now we see that these emissions, in fact, are also deadly to the food chain itself, let alone the GMO side. And then there's also the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the biosphere. And so all of this is under threat. So how can we put a stop to these developments, which amount to acts of genocide and to the human population, an ecocide against the biodiversity of nature?
Well, it's easier said than done, but you have to go up against now the most powerful industry that the planet has ever known. In fact, the industry is so powerful it can buy governments, and there is, I mean, there is a way to control this. And to control this, you take as many microwaves out of the air as possible. Everything can go on fibre optic cable. You can have cafes and transport where you plug in to fibre optic. Libraries can have fibre optic cable. Schools, houses can be fitted with that. So you take out all the microwaves from the air and you leave it, which is what it was originally intended for, as a life and death emergency. Then there is no problem. But what you've got now are children and people who are chemically hooked on cell phones, and they are going to destroy the planet that they're living on. It is a total re-education system. The other thing that some countries are doing is they are setting up white zones. White zones are now parts of country where there are no microwaves allowed. This is why they want to put up satellites to come down, and people can go and live in white zones. And you can grow your own food and do your own thing. So there are white zones. We will reach a crunch point whereby, like with smoking, you can only lie to so many people for so long. And when there have been too many funerals, particularly children, somebody is going to say, we've made all the money we're going to get out of this. You can't take us to court, but we can't risk the planet anymore. Now we'll have a new system. And the new system they're working on is light. Instead of microwaves, they're using light. I first saw a demonstration of this in 1982. So they're only going as long as they need to make as much as they can. The fact that people are going to die is really irrelevant. Maybe in 10 years, 15 years, you will have all fibre optic cable. You will have light instead of microwaves, or a different light frequency. That is coming in now. They're perfecting it. And then the people in the future will say, well, how on earth did they get away with microwaves killing that many people for so long? The same as we said, and I know the answer, why did smoking keep going for so long when it was known in 1599 how it caused cancer? Or why was lead put in petrol and kept for 30 years a secret, diesel and all the other things? And it is industry, like you read out, it is industry saying, we are going to make as much from this. As many of you that die have to, that's par for the course. It's unfortunate, but there you are. You can't take us to court because we are invincible. And there you are. Yeah, and that's it. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It can't go on because even the people making their trillions will want to live somewhere. And the time will come when they will stop it. They will get rid of the microwaves, use light, fibre optic cable. We breed a new breed of children who are not chemically addicted. It is worth saying now that one country, and I can't mention it, one country has now opened up clinics to detoxify children from their cell phones and detoxify them and get them back to normal. So in the world, and it is a big country, and the clinics are right across the country, they are now detoxifying children. And it has started, and I know other countries that are now restricting children, saying you will not have a cell phone until you reach this age, and then we will tell you how much you can use it. So there are countries doing something about this. But in our part of the world, the countries in Europe that have not listened, where the industry, the Wi-Fi and the 5G are running rampant across the country, once it's in, it will be in until the industry decides to take it out. And however many of you die, that's just unfortunate as far as the industry goes.
Okay, now I really think that this very much concludes the talk today. I would only add that those of us who live and work with the spiritual dimension in ourselves, the human dimension, the spiritual dimension, must also be aware that the spiritual dimension connects up with light. So it doesn't connect up with microwaves. The spiritual direction is to do with light emanations, to do with photons, to do with completely different and natural forms of background energy, so to speak.
Can I just finish with one spiritual thing, please? During one legal case, just about 2 or 3 minutes, okay? During a legal case, lunchtime, I went into a pub, have a cup of coffee and a sandwich, or a Guinness or a sandwich, and the barrister came, the opposing barrister for the industry, sat down, and he said, "You know you're going to lose." And I said, "Well, I tend to lose because I don't have the legal knowledge and the planning law, and in this country you are not allowed to use health as a reason to take down a transmitter or stop a planning application. They have said you may not use health as a reason." And he said, you're going to lose." And I said, "Okay, but I will still try." And I said, "Will you answer me one question?" I said, "I'm prepared when I go into the afterlife to face all of the spirits, and I'm prepared to say I lost, but I tried. I wasn't good enough. But you, on the other hand, you are doing this with all the knowledge that you have, and when you go into the afterlife and they're not impressed by your club, the size of your yacht, your mansion, your bank account, what one sentence will you say, having caused this genocide? What one sentence can you give? I can stand there as a loser, and I tried. What one sentence will you say, please tell me, where there is no lying, because they can look right through you? When you face the judges, what one sentence will you say to justify genocide?" And he thought about it, he didn't answer, he went away, and he won.